Welcome, fellow creatures of the night, to this meeting of the Midnight Culture Club. Here we venture deep into the nocturnal lands of the strange, the morbid, the absurd and the obscure in film, books, TV, fairy tales, urban legends and many other forms of pop culture. We discuss and analyse these texts to explore the fascinating ways they reflect, comment on and critique the world we live in from its darker side. I am Xenia, the overmotivated nerd who's decided last minute to do a Valentine's Day special, and somehow we've magically managed to procure the perfect guest for it. It is the return of Anna.
Yay! Hi!
Anna has returned, and so we declare this meeting of the Midnight Culture Club officially in session.
Yay! I feel like I was so high pitched at the beginning, but that's because of the little cat next to me.
Yeah,
I think my brain went baby voice.
Yeah, I mean it's difficult to talk to the kitty and not baby voice.
Oh yeah, but his presence will kill me.
Anna is allergic.
Oh, highly allergic.
So we'll see.
And he's also really rubbing all of his fur into my sweater.
He's maximizing the impact. So yeah, basically we have two guests.
We do have two guests.
It's the first episode with Kat.
I think the cat though is not a very active participant.
I think he's not gonna do his little analysis.
He is here for the cuddles.
Yes, that is very true.
The purring, but not much else.
For the ambience.
The ambience. The cambience.
The cambience. Today, we have gathered here for...
He's left.
Oh, he's gone on the sofa.
Okay. Oh, he heard me complaining.
Yeah, he's like, okay, I guess won't kill you then. So yeah, we are gathered here today for our little Valentine's Day episode. And thanks, Anna, for being ready at such short notice, because I didn't even know this episode was going to happen 3 days ago.
Did you just speed research?
Yes. Because I was like, oh, I could do a little Valentine's Day episode. This one Tuesday, right? I was like, I could do a little episode. I'll just pick like one little myth or like a folk tale or something and just like tell it and talk about it a little bit.
Oh, cute.
So yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at a little love story from folklore.
I love love.
That's where you're the perfect Valentine's Day guest.
Thank you. I am so obsessed with romance.
See, so you are literally the perfect guest for this.
Thank you for having me.
So this also means that this is a wholesome episode for this podcast standards.
Wholesome things can also happen at midnight.
I was going to say nobody dies, but that's not true. But... actually, to quote my high school French teacher, he said, if nobody dies, it's not a good story. Every interesting story, somebody dies.
That's okay. French teacher, okay.
Yeah, he has to be dramatic. But alas, somebody does die, so it does meet French teacher's definition of an interesting story. It's also interesting in other ways. We'll get into our little tale. But first, Anna, I have a question for you. I know what your answer is because I sent you something. But Anna, have you heard of the butterfly lovers?
Surprisingly, I have actually. I had before you sent me. So you sent me a movie to watch.
Yes, I did.
And I had before that.
Cute.
I'm obsessed with that story. When you sent me that and I started watching it, I didn't know what it was. But as I watched the movie that you sent me,
yes,
is it Taiwanese?
It's from Hong Kong.
Is it? Oh,
yes,
I see.
It's from the Shaw Brothers studio in Hong Kong.
Interesting. Yes. How did you know about that movie?
They just kind of, it gets mentioned a lot of the time in like the articles about the story because it's like the most famous adaptation.
But I really do. I mean, I spent one lonely night Googling. You know when you like start Wikipedia articles after Wikipedia
Yes.
articles, and then you click on the next one there, you're like, oh, this sounds interesting.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's 3 in the morning and you're like, oh, I know a lot about this random myth now.
Great. I mean, so basically you probably know more about it than I do.
I don't think so.
But you know, which is great. So yeah, we're talking today about a Chinese folklore story that is in like modern times known as the Butterfly Lovers. The traditional name is often referred to as Liang, which are the names of the two protagonists together. Also, if I say the Chinese name wrong, I'm sorry. I looked them up, but I'm probably saying them wrong anyway. But I'm trying.
Is it supposed to be in Mandarin?
Well, the thing is, the story exists in lots of different regions. It also exists in Korea. So it's kind of difficult to assign it to one specific language.
I see.
But yeah, I think the pronunciation the pronunciation guides are usually in Mandarin. So yeah, this is a folktale that's been popular for centuries. It's been adapted to films, as we already know, musicals, to theaters. There's also like classical musical pieces based on it. So it's like a very big deal. And it's one of the kind of most famous and most kind of long-living Chinese folktales. Its origins are actually centuries old, so it possibly goes back to the 4th or 5th century.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so it's very, very old. It's not completely clear if it already existed then, but like there's some hints. But it was definitely already widespread in the Song dynasty, so between like the 10th and the 13th century. That's when there's like lots of written ballads about it in verse, so it was probably already in existence before that.
Oh, interesting.
If it's like already been, present in so many different areas. Also spread to spread sounds like a disease. It also was adopted in Korea. And of course, as a little disclaimer, as usual with older stories, with popular tales, there's lots of different versions, different settings, different endings. So it's possible that if you know the story, you maybe know a different version with different details or a different ending. We'll talk a little bit about the differences as well. But the main story that we're going to look at today is one that takes the 20th century ending, so a modern version.
Oh.
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, it is an ending that has existed before, but it's one that became really popular in the 20th century, which is the one with the butterflies.
Oh, I see.
Yes, because there's also butterfly-free versions.
For people with butterfly intolerance?
Yes.
I see.
We're going to listen to this story, a little dramatic reading. This main story, I've oriented it along different examples from the late imperial period and the 20th century that are cited in the book by Sukiya Cho that you can find in the description as well. So I've kind of used different bits from the examples that she used. That's one of my main sources. My other main source is by a guy called Wilt Idema, who is a Dutch guy.
Oh.
Yes, but he's like super into the Chinese literature.
Yeah, I know the kind.
Yep, I think that's all the preamble. So let's begin with the actual story. Many years ago, there was a young girl called Yingtai. She was very skilled at the art of embroidery and painted the most beautiful images with her needle. The moon and the stars, mandarin ducks, tigers and dragons, apricots and peonies, and the magical couples of the old tales. And yet, she often sat in her lonely room and sighed. She dreamed of leaving her quarters and going out into the world, to study, to learn, to become part of the wider world surrounding her. Yingtai hears that there are good things in books, and that the words in books are very lofty and forceful. If I miss this chance now, she tells herself, I will remain ignorant my whole life, unable to compose anything. So Zhu went to her parents and asked them for permission to leave home and to find a master to teach her literature. But her father dismissed her. Only a man receives education. I have never seen a woman studying literary classics. Just think of the difficulties and dangers you as a girl will face trying to go to an academy. Zhu was disappointed, but not discouraged. If as a woman she wasn't able to travel by herself and join an academy, she would have to do it as a man. Zhu disguised herself as a fortune teller and knocked on her family's home door. Not even her own parents recognized her and realized that their daughter could convincingly disguise and therefore protect herself. They were still concerned about her chastity though, so Zhu swore an oath on a peony that it should remain fresh and blooming until she returned, as long as she did not lose her virginity. Zhu arrived safely at the academy and, presenting as a respectable young man, was allowed to enroll. She shared a room with a young man called Liang, who soon became her closest friend. For 3 years they studied literature together, discussed animatedly what they had read, they ate together every day, fell asleep next to one another every night, and took care of one another in the most affectionate way. And as the years passed, Zhu fell in love with her best friend Liang and wished nothing more than to marry him. But Liang never guessed that Zhu was in disguise, and to him she was like a best friend, like a brother. Zhu realized that her disguise that had allowed her to live her dream of the academy, of being free to wander the world and learn from it, was also the thing that separated her from the joy of marrying the man she loved. She decided that after she left the academy, she would reveal to Liang that she was really a woman, and she prayed that following this, he would fall in love with her too. So when the time came that Zhu had completed her studies and returned home to her family, she invited Liang to come visit her soon, and he agreed to come see his friend. On this visit, Zhu revealed her true identity to him. At first, Liang was heartbroken. He felt as though he had lost the best friend he'd ever had. But then something changed. His friendship too turned to love, and soon he wanted to marry Zhu as much as she wanted to marry him. But unfortunately, Zhu's family had already found a fiancé for her, a wealthy young man called Ma. Zhu tried to talk her way out of this engagement. She pleaded with her parents, but they could not be moved. Liang could not bear the loss he felt when he learned that Zhu would marry someone else. He fell ill, and before the wedding even took place, Liang died of a broken heart. His body was buried in a tomb by the river. Meanwhile, Zhu was preparing for her wedding. Reluctantly, she packed her belongings and with her family and the wedding party took off by boat towards the town where Ma lived and where the wedding should take place. But halfway to their destination, strong winds hit the boat and stopped it from continuing on its way. The party was forced to go to shore and rest there until the wind stopped. On the bank of the river, Zhu sat in melancholy when she noticed a tomb, only a few steps away. She rose and walked over to it and read the name on the gravestone. It was the name of her beloved Liang. Zhu's heart shattered into 1,000 shards, and she threw herself upon the grave. She begged for the grave to open and consume her so she could be with Liang forever. And with a deafening clap of thunder, the black earth split open and Zhu threw herself into the grave. The earth closed again over her, and nothing was left to see of the girl's body. But moments later, 2 butterflies rose from the disturbed earth. 2 butterflies, one red and one black, danced together towards the sky into eternity. The end.
I love the story. I mean, it's so sad. Also, Bronte core somehow.
With the grave.
With her dressing up as a fortune teller, Rochester would have loved her.
I think it's also very, like, it all often gets called, like, the Chinese Romeo and Juliet, and I think it's very Shakespearean.
The cross-dressing?
The cross-dressing, the people dying because drama.
Okay, I think that's true, though.
That people die because
Not
of drama,
like
yeah.
Prime Minister Trudeau. I think that's true, though, that people can die of a broken heart.
Oh, yeah.
I think the idea of it
Yeah.
is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many tales that have that element.
They do.
But then I'm also kind of like, no, I get it. It's like, yeah, I would too.
I would die too.
I am a little romance bug like that. If my partner dies, I'm not staying for long. Like, sorry, bye. So you always have to pray for my partner's health.
Yeah. I'm like, sorry, best, you're not allowed to die. That's
Also, cross-dressing icon.
Yes.
Drag king.
I find a lot of interesting stuff about the cross-dressing, especially in the Cho book. She writes a lot about the cross-dressing topic and about how it's a story about this girl who wants to enter into a male space.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the cross-dressing allows her to do that. Basically, she writes that the theme of cross-dressing for female characters who try to enter a male domain, basically, is something that's like really widespread in Chinese folklore. The one we probably all know is Mulan.
Yes.
Who does something very similar. Yeah, it's a common theme in like pre-modern Chinese tales. And it's very interesting in how differently it is judged within the story. And that really depends on the motivation for why the characters do the cross-dressing and go into these male domains. It kind of depends on whether they do it to help their family or help someone else, or whether they do it for their own interests. That's kind of the point that makes the difference, whether it's seen as something positive or negative.
Interesting.
Right?
Yes.
So for example, in the Mulan story, the Disney version is not like super close to the tale.
What?
It's not. I know, it's a surprise.
Oh my,
Who would have
Disney
thought?
company is not respecting culture? How crazy.
But what they do get, following the myth, is that she does dress up as a guy to go to war instead of her dad, who's conscripted, but he's very old, so she tries to help her dad.
Yes.
And that, for example, is a very like honorable motivation, and because of that she is seen as a positive figure within the folk tale.
She gets to live, right?
She does. I'm not completely sure about Mulan, but there are different examples of this trope, and usually it ends with the woman kind of returning to her female role and marrying someone. But I don't know if it's like the same guy as in the, you know, it could just be some random dude who wasn't in the story beforehand. Entirely possible.
Is kind of a loss for Chinese culture. Because that man, Shang, I'm not saying things about an animated character, but I am saying that he was instrumental to a lot of what I would call my coming of age.
Fair enough.
He is incredible. He helps her, but like not in a I'm gonna take over now, but he's sorry, this is completely like we're not here to talk about how hot Chang is. But yeah, if Disney's gonna butcher my culture, which please don't.
Yeah, don't.
But
Rude.
if they do and they add Shang, I wouldn't be mad.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know if Shang is canon, but usually in these stories, it is the case that the women then return to their female role and then they marry someone. Another like acceptable motivation for cross-dressing is the one that we see in this story, which is to kind of for women to preserve or protect their virtue, you know, their virginity, because that's very important.
How dare
Because
she?
apparently if you're dressed as a guy, you can't lose your virginity.
No, but if you're dressed as a guy, you get around so much. Maybe that's what they were trying to say. Like, don't, you know?
Mm-hmm.
All of those students, they're just like going to college in the United States, where suddenly everyone's doing everyone. And she has to... What did she do? Breathe on a peony?
Yeah, she like takes this vow of chastity, and she basically has this peony. And she says that as long as she stays virtuous, the peony will bloom and it will not wilt. You know, the peony does not wilt. She's very respectable.
Of course, even though she does sleep in a bed with a man.
Yes, but she's not doing anything, so it's fine.
Yeah, because they're just schoolmates.
They're just best buddies.
They were roommates. History will call them siblings.
But I think it's a really cool idea that the cross-dressing is also a form of protection.
Yes. That sort of like a certain amount of masculinity gives her immunity.
Yes, that it gives her, you know, protection and autonomy. So because she is a woman, she wouldn't have access to those things normally. And if she kind of takes on the disguise of the man, she has access to a whole different world. And I think it's interesting that if it is framed within this idea of it's to protect her honor, it's acceptable. Like, it's not seen as something negative because she's doing it for an honorable reason, basically.
And also like the studying aspect of it all, right? She's like, she's tapping into, as you said, sort of a culture that is not open to her.
Yeah.
I think humanity loves a little cross-dressing moment.
Oh, yes.
Because I feel like so many cultures have that, or like even a disguise. There must be something.
It's a good plot point. It makes for good stories.
It makes for good stories. And I mean, it's not just in, you know, it's part of, obviously, as you've explained, in the Chinese culture, but also like Shakespeare. That man loved a little cross-dressing plot line.
He sure did. I mean, it also makes a lot of sense for Shakespeare with like all of the actors being men.
Yes.
So like cross-dressing was just a thing in the theater world, because obviously if you can have female actors, like all the female roles had to be played by men, so you were kind of in an environment where cross-dressing was a thing anyway. And I love all the plot lines. Maybe he just found, I'm convinced that Shakespeare just found it funny to write all these plot lines where women dress up as men. So you had a male actor dressing up as a woman dressed up as a man, which is hilarious.
I'd like to think that he just had the actor wear a wig on top of the wig.
Yes.
I love Shakespeare.
I know. I think it's really interesting in this story that Zhu obviously wants to cross this gender boundary into this male space of studying, because she's not traditionally allowed to do that. In general, there was a sort of, and this is also from Cho's book, there was a bit of a concern in pre-modern China about women being too educated. They were like supposed to be a little bit educated in like religion and in certain arts like
embroidery.
Embroidery is very important. We have a little embroidery input as well. So that was important, but they shouldn't be too educated. There's actually a proverb from pre-modern China that says, "A woman without talent is virtuous."
Wow. Put me in pre-modern China. No, I'm just kidding. I'm so virtuous then. No, I'm just kidding.
You have a lot of talent.
Thank you.
So, unfortunately, you're not virtuous. Sorry, you're gonna have to...
My sinful
Very
self.
sinful. You're not gonna be a butterfly, sorry.
Really,
So yeah, it really is a very kind of boundary crossing thing that she wants to do with studying, especially literature and writing. Like, writing was a craft that was very much associated with men, and also with like civil service and being in like public offices and stuff like that.
Oh.
So her kind of wanting to learn about literature and writing specifically also suggests that she's kind of interested in entering the political sphere. And it's fascinating that we have this like wish that she has to enter this kind of male dominated field, and at the same time here comes the embroidery.
Yes.
She's like very, very skilled at this traditionally female art, not just in art but also one of the few ways that women had to like creatively express themselves. So embroidery was like a really important cultural practice for women to express themselves, express their desires and their dreams and their creativity. And what's super interesting is that in many of the stories, her embroidery is described in a lot of detail, and her skill at it is described in a lot of detail. So on the one hand, she has this dream to enter the male sphere, but at the same time she's like very, very skilled at this very feminine coded activity and this art. And what she embroiders is also super interesting. So in the story I mentioned, for example, the Mandarin ducks, and they are a symbol for marriage.
Oh.
But at the same time, there's also usually things from the natural world, so the moon and the stars and the apricots and the flowers. There's a combination of this kind of romantic desire and a desire for sort of experiencing in the natural world and learning about the world around her. So she really is a character that has both of these like feminine and masculine coded wishes and interests.
Non-binary queen.
Yes. Yes.
So good. Perfect.
Right. She's doing great.
On the one hand, it kind of does make sense to me
Mm-hmm.
that she's reinforced as being very feminine, because I think the story has to straddle that line of transgression quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right, because it can't be gay.
No. Excuse me.
How dare it, you know?
Scandalous.
So, sort of this reinforcement of her being a very feminine character.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a more hopeful reading to it.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's, on the one hand, this female character is very multifaceted. On the other, there is sort of almost something cynical about her having to be that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's interesting because those are kind of the two competing main readings of the character.
Ayo, I'm so good at patterns.
You're great. You're doing amazing. Yeah, because that's something that like both the analyses texts that I read talk about, that there's this kind of changing interpretation or different ways to look at her having both of these sides to her, right? There's what's very popular in 20th century readings and very contemporary readings as well is to see Zhu as a character who kind of aims for gender equality, who aims for being allowed into this male field, and who, you know, doesn't want to be like restricted just because she's a woman. And on the other hand, there are these older interpretations that kind of need her to return to this traditionally feminine thing at the end, or that need her to maintain that, to maintain a certain like feminine purity. That's also where the virtue thing comes in. That's very important to sort of make sure she's not too transgressive. Two competing ways to look at it, and I think they both work really well.
I mean, I agree, but mostly because I came up with it first and then you told me about it.
Of course you did. Actually, these people, all these scholars, they're just plagiarizing you.
They want what I have.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding.
They wish they were as smart as you.
Yeah, I just have, you know, I wanted to say holographic abilities, but that's not.
Maybe you have those too.
Oh my goodness. Imagine.
You could just project holographs. That would be fun. Holograms, not holographs. Holograms? Holograms. Oh, and then there's another thing about the cross-dressing.
Oh, go on.
On the one hand, as we've talked about, the cross-dressing allows you a lot more autonomy and a lot more freedom to decide and to learn all these things that she wants to learn. But at the same time, the cross-dressing also has a negative side to it, because it kind of brings about the whole issue with her not being able to marry Liang. Because, you know, they can't marry as long as he thinks she's a guy, because that would be gay. Scandalous.
I mean, I don't see an issue, but go on.
Maybe in the 13th century China.
Fair.
But yeah, I think they could just be gay. But anyway, so yeah, that's the cross-dressing is also what causes the romantic relationship to be inhibited, right?
Yes.
Because she's in love with him. He doesn't know he's allowed to be in love with her, basically. And then it kind of takes too long to resolve the situation, and then she's engaged to somebody else.
It's interesting that it's not a class issue. Like, technically there is nothing in the way of them getting married.
Other than, you know, the thing of, oh, she is engaged to this other guy now.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe money.
Yeah, possibly. That's also interesting, the money issue, because in a lot of the older versions of the tale, her fiancé is not, like, more wealthy than her. They're, like, similar. But in the modern versions, he's usually portrayed as wealthier, so that we get this financial reason into it. And that's super interesting because the communist government of China in the 20th century was like a really big fan of that version.
Oh.
Because it kind of shows how, you know, the different classes kind of disrupt the happy ending. So they read it as kind of like an anti-class division tale.
See, again, I tapped into the Communist Party's mindset.
You just know what they're thinking. It's crazy.
Maybe I read your notes beforehand without you knowing. Maybe I'm just like tapping into your mind.
Maybe you are. Ooh.
Ooh.
Wow.
Sorry, I'll keep out of it.
It's fine. It's okay. I mean, I don't think I'm really thinking anything that's scandalous. So.
Okay.
I might be thinking stuff that's just dumb and annoying. But yeah, then you might just want to leave anyway.
I mean, I feel like our threshold for scandalous is a little bit higher than most people's.
Yeah.
From like your entire podcast.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for some people, the cross-dressing is already scandalous. So, yeah.
Wait, she cross-dresses?
Oh, no. I find it fascinating how, first of all, it's a very complex story, right? With these different transgressions and how they are read and how they can be read in so many different ways. It's not as straightforward as it might look at the beginning.
Straight?
Where were we?
Cross-dressing.
Yes, the cross-dressing. We're more or less done with the cross-dressing.
Slay. Oh, no slay. Because like the cross-dressing is the best part of that story.
Oh, regarding the cross-dressing.
Yes.
Did you notice something in the movie?
They're both women.
Yes.
So the person that they cast as the love interest, Liang,
Yes.
is also a woman. But also like the funny thing about the movie is that she cross-dresses. But Miss Ma'am decides to put on a full face of makeup every single day. She's cross-dressing and you're looking at her and you're like, I wonder if they had a cat eye eyeliner back and like false lashes back in the 13th century.
Why
China.
not?
And also like the guy, like the girl who's supposed to play the guy, which love a little sapphic moment.
Yes.
She's also like so obviously like
A girl.
yeah, just a woman in drag.
I love that they somehow made it gayer.
Crazy. Like out of all of the options to make the story gayer, they took the gayest one.
They did. I love it. What's also really cool is that, so I don't really know why they made this casting choice.
Yes.
I couldn't find that official reasoning behind it, but what's super interesting is that at the time that the story is set, the beauty standards for wealthy young men were very feminine.
Oh.
So it actually makes a lot of sense that they're both very feminine.
It is.
I love it.
Incredible.
It also makes sense for the story itself that obviously in a period like that where the male beauty standard was also kind of more feminine, it would probably be easier for her to pass as a man anyway.
I also think that there is something that makes it interesting when the expectations of gender are much more rigid. That it is easier to pass. Probably in the time that the story is set, if you have more rigid clothing standards for what is supposed to be male and female, people are not going to be expecting a woman dressed as a man.
Yeah, so that like the clothing itself already makes everyone assume, oh, this is a man or this is a woman.
Yeah.
They're not like looking as closely because the regulations are so strict. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Whereas nowadays it's kind of like much more fluid.
So much clothing can be worn by any gender without it being weird or unusual. Like
Absolutely.
literally anyone can wear like jeans and a t-shirt.
Yes.
It will not be specifically noticed on anybody, regardless of like gender or age or anything. We've made cross-dressing more difficult.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that. It's just a thought.
No, I mean it's something that the trans community thinks a lot about, right?
Because this cross-dressing aspect is so central to the story, and obviously it also kind of introduces some kind of queer love element into it. Obviously Liang thinks that Zhu is a guy and then they're friends, but then like it switches so quickly to like a romantic love after he finds out she's a woman that I'm like, there's been something before that.
I mean, honestly, that's what some straight men are like.
Okay, but that's just boring.
What do you mean?
I just prefer the idea that, obviously I know that some people are just like very straight. To me, it makes a lot more sense that he only recognizes the more romantic side of his feelings after it's kind of legitimate.
Oh, I see, yeah. Very Shang from Mulan.
Yes.
Two icons, honestly. I think that you're right. And I think that a lot of straight men... Okay, can I be controversial for a second?
Sure.
Okay, cool. I think a lot of straight men would benefit from just calling themselves bi. Because a lot of them are like, oh, I want to kiss the homies. And it's like, dude,
Like,
just do it.
you can do it, like, it's fine.
Yeah, like, it's... Do you know it's legal?
First of all, it's legal, and also...
For now.
For now, yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, it's legal, and also, just because you want to kiss someone, it doesn't have to be a big deal.
Yeah. But there's a lot of, like, men who truly only see their homies as humans.
Mm-hmm.
And then they dehumanize women, are like, oh, I'm in love with this woman. And you're like, why?
Oh, I hate that.
And then they're like, oh, she's so beautiful.
There's nothing I hate more than people who, like, are attracted to someone at the same time are, like, really disrespectful towards them. That's so gross.
It is also so weird.
Why would you fancy someone who you're not at least like, oh, this person's kind of nice?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Or like, well...
Maybe not nice, but like, you know, someone that you have some kind of interest in.
Yeah, or basic human respect for.
Yes.
Like, you don't view this person as an object.
Yeah.
Yeah, Liang could never.
What I also really like about this story is that because of this kind of shift that happens with Liang, who obviously first sees Zhu as like his best friend and then falls in love with her, I really like that friendship and romantic love are so close together in this story.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think it's nice to see a story where, and I don't know if this is like a cultural thing or not, I'm not sure, but I just really like the idea that these two things are not like so opposite from each other, but they are very close together and they can sort of move from one to the other. Yeah, I think that's quite beautiful and quite a sort of appreciative view of friendship as well.
It's very interesting to me that they describe their bond as like brothers.
Yeah.
That is really interesting. If we go by the reading that, you know, he's in love with her.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Not to make
Fair
it
enough.
weird. But
Oh, you ruined my cute little friendship idea.
who's behind the door? It's incest. No, I think there is also something to be said about sort of this idea of found family in a way. And a very strong bond that it seems like perhaps we as a culture don't really have a term for that, which is this familial bond that goes beyond friendship but is not towards someone that you're blood related to.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're blood related to someone, or if someone's actually legally in your family, that is a big deal, but that is usually you come to that through birth,
Yes.
adoption, or marriage.
Yes.
And in a romantic sense, you obviously have marriage, which is also a legal thing. But we don't really have that legality in friendship.
That's true.
We don't really have like, oh, a commitment to a friend. So you can never really take your friendship to the next step.
That's true. That is very I've never thought of that, but yeah.
Really?
Yeah, no, I've never thought about
I thought you might have thought about that. Feels like something you would think about.
That's true.
And there's also like no true celebratory dimension to it either.
Yeah.
Right, where you can have a wedding or you can have like the birth of a child, which is usually celebrated by a baby shower or a birthday party.
Yeah. We're discriminating friendships again.
Kind of,
That's not cool.
No.
I don't like that. I think friendship is great.
You can run on that as your platform in the next election. I think friends should be legal.
Yes. Sounds as if it's illegal to have friends. You're not allowed friends. Stop it. Stop it with that filth.
Honestly though, some political parties. Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Because they want you to be miserable, so you listen to them.
Dear Lord.
Anyway. And also, I don't really see you know how when you're married, you kind of have to prove that you're like in a romantic relationship.
Oh yeah.
I think that's so dumb.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, why?
And also such a modern take on it.
Yes. First of all, that, right? Because we have this idea as very new, much newer than a lot of people are aware of, that the basis of marriage is romantic love. When, for the vast majority of history, it was basically like an insurance.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And like, how is it a scam if you marry your friend?
Honestly,
I don't get it.
No, I don't either. And also, like, it doesn't make sense to me that only someone who's romantically involved with a person can have certain legal access to that person's life. One of the major things why I think marriage is like good and important is that then transfers a lot of responsibilities from your parents to your spouse.
Yeah.
And to like the person you choose to live your life with. That doesn't have to be romantic.
No.
That might be your platform to run on. Make marriage platonic.
Make marriage platonic again.
Oh god.
The MAGAs would hate it.
Oh, the rise of fascism.
Yay.
What did you say about the butterflies? Let's go back to something nice.
Let's talk about that. I actually have a lot of nice stuff about the butterflies.
Oh,
about the butterflies
nice.
Specifically. About the symbolism of the butterflies.
Cute.
It's really interesting that they turn into butterflies at the end of the story, because the butterfly is a very long established symbol in Chinese culture and in art, as well as the combination of like butterflies and flowers are like very important symbolisms for romantic love.
Oh, interesting.
And the sort of traditional version of it would be that the flower represents a woman and like the sort of feminine beauty, and the butterfly represents like the male partner. So you have like a couple with a man and a woman, and the flowers represents the woman and the butterfly represents the man. And that also reflects their sort of traditional societal roles, right? Where the woman is kind of more stationary and like in the house, and she's supposed to be admired, and the man, who's the butterfly, like flies around and is more active out in the world, but then like returns to the flower.
That is a deep reading.
But apparently it seems to be pretty consolidated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a very like deeply ingrained symbol. And what's also kind of cool, it also has to do with like the gender aspect, that of course at the end of the story they are both butterflies.
Yeah.
So it's gay again.
It's gay. You're trying.
I just want it to be a bit gay.
I think that is a valid reading of that.
Right. It fits the gender transgression element of the story, that at the end they're both butterflies.
It really does. I mean, it also is something... Right, if we're already doing queer readings, let's go.
Apparently, Idema says this, it's been recently like really adopted by like queer movements in Hong Kong. This story.
Oh, that is adorable. Yeah. Like, that's really lovely. I mean, if we're doing a queer reading of it, her want to go into male fields but also be seen as a male in a sense is really a driving force of the story.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, this part about butterflies being male. Never thought of it.
Yeah, me neither. I think in Europe, butterflies are more female coded. They're definitely not male coded.
Wait, what do you mean the truckers don't have butterfly stickers all over their pickup trucks?
I have never seen a trucker with a butterfly sticker or a butterfly tattoo. Just saying. It's just kind of cool to see how, depending on cultures, like the same animal can be like associated with such different things.
Let's talk about how cool it is that she begs the grave to open up and then throws herself in it.
That is so goth of her.
Also so Heathcliff.
It's very Heathcliff.
Like, who read the story to the Bronte sisters?
Maybe for context, what does Heathcliff do with the graves, Anna?
Well, he exhumes his lover's bone. Like, he digs it up.
Yes.
And then he lies there with her, I think. And then...
Which, I guess you can do that.
I guess you can do that. I guess And it's not legal.
That's definitely not legal.
Yeah.
And I think there's some good reasons for it to not be legal.
Oh, okay, so this is not part of your platform? Your political platform?
I'm not a fan of randomly digging up people who are dead.
Keep randomly digging up people illegal.
Yes. It's kind of dangerous for disease control.
Oh, but doesn't she like look literally the same?
Yeah.
I love how you went through, your mind probably now went through, how do I explain?
In fiction, fine.
Yeah.
I think you're allowed to dig up dead people in fiction. Don't do it in real life, but in fiction, fine.
I think you can do a lot of things in fiction that you shouldn't do in real life.
Everything Heathcliff does.
Everything Heathcliff and Rochester do.
Everything anyone in a Bronte book does, actually.
She doesn't excavate someone though.
No, she doesn't. No, she doesn't excavate him. She's just like, swallow me up, grave. Which is also something Heathcliff would do, though.
Honestly, yeah. But I think in her case, you know, she's not getting her hands dirty.
No, she's not.
So she's not breaking your laws.
No, I think she's fine.
Good.
I think, like, throwing yourself on the grave and being dramatic, I think that's okay. In fiction and in real life. I don't have a problem with that.
Well, good to know.
Also, transforming into a butterfly, don't have any issues with that.
I think you're one step ahead of a lot of conservatives there. I think they would hear like the trans of transforming and immediately throw hands.
No, we like trans people.
Yes.
We do. Be a butterfly.
Yes, that's... Cheers to trans people.
Yes! Aren't like butterflies also like a symbol in the trans community? Or
I don't know.
Is that me projecting stuff again?
I think there are so many symbols in the queer community.
That's true.
Where at some point you're just like, oh, someone with a blog wrote this.
Oh, yeah.
I know the sharks are for some reason.
What?
I think it's to do with this one IKEA shark that is just the trans flag colors.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like, if you don't get proper merch with your colors, you take anything that has the colors, right?
I think, okay, not to tell trans people that they're uppity.
I don't know.
But out of all of the queer communities, the trans flag is literally one of the prettiest.
It's beautiful.
It is.
It's so gorgeous. Yes.
So, you know, trans people don't have a hard time finding flags. Like, just go into the baby section of anything.
But usually then you only get one of them.
Oh, that's true.
The shark did the cool thing of combining them.
Yeah, I see. Okay, I take my attack on the trans community back. You were talking about?
I think we were done with the butterflies.
Oh, I love butterflies.
Oh, no, actually I have an additional little butterfly fact. The story of Liang and Zhu is actually seen as the origin story of butterflies in some versions of the tale.
Oh.
So that's cute.
That is very cute. I love that.
I have a little bit about the sort of development of the story over time. So we've already said that the story has a very, very long history that potentially goes back to the 4th century. Obviously, depending on the time period, the themes were weighed very differently and different things have been added or removed throughout time. And, very importantly, for the Valentine's Day theme, the understanding of love in the story has changed as well. Again, this is kind of very simplified and general because there are so many different versions, so many influences that we can't really cover all the different ones, but so they're kind of like general trends that we're talking about. So the version that we talked about is a modern one, the sort of 20th century version, and that is where the butterflies kind of become the staple ending. Before that there were kind of butterfly versions and non-butterfly versions for the vegans.
I mean, vegans is right, because vegans wouldn't want any animals involved anyways, right? Again, okay, so I'm gonna attack the vegans. I do find it a little bit insane to be like, oh, I don't want bee labor to be used in my food. All the love and peace to the vegans.
Are vegans allowed to listen to Hosier?
No.
Because the bee labor. He has bees.
I've never met a vegan who actually follows that. Like, honey is understandable. I think what gets insane is when you go into pollination.
Yes, because then it just gets too difficult.
Then you're like, the bee worker class is not gonna have its own revolution. But I also don't know enough about the topic. Maybe there's a huge exploitation of bees.
It's possible.
Maybe this is what's leading to bee death. The way you looked at me, like, how did we get here?
I don't know. I don't remember what I was talking about.
I would like to formally apologize to the queer and the vegan community and the bee community as well. If you do revolutionize, I will put out a flower for you, bees.
Wait.
The butterflies.
The butterfly.
No, we weren't.
No, we were talking about the different versions of the tale, and that the butterfly version is the one that's kind of become the main one in the 20th century. And there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is that in the 1920s, what happened in China was a movement called the folklore movement, where...
Taylor Swift reference? Sorry.
Exactly.
Go on.
I knew you were going to say that.
Thank you.
They were all wearing their little cardigans.
Oh my god.
And in the course of that, what happened was that there was this idea to sort of like bring folklore to the forefront, and as part of this, 4 great folk legends of China were sort of selected as the sort of like main myths. So everyone came together in their cardigans.
Thank you.
And they chose these 4 great folk legends, and one of them is the story of the butterfly lovers. And the version that they chose is the one with the butterfly ending. So that's basically the reason why this one became so prominent in the 20th century. And Idema points out that because these 4 legends were kind of fixed, that also led to a lot of the other versions kind of being overlooked and being ignored in like scholarship later on, and also in pop culture. So it's like a little bit reductive.
Oh.
Yeah, and the idea, of course, but what usually happens with folk tales is that they develop and they're kind of orally passed on, and then they change, and so basically the folklore movement sort of inhibited the natural flow of folklore. And through this, of course, because one specific version was fixed, they also kind of fixed one dominant interpretation of it, because the different versions are influenced by different underlying interpretations. And what he also says in this article is that a lot of the stories in this period were kind of reanalyzed under themes that were imported from Europe, or categories that were imported from Europe, because the folklore movement was very kind of European influenced. So, for example, they introduced categories like myth for stories about gods, or the category of fairy tales when we were talking about, stories for children. So we get these new categories that didn't really exist beforehand. So there was kind of this external structuring that happened during this folklore movement.
It does make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like very much like a reinforcement of culture in a way that's often can have, like, it does have to do with presenting yourself as something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
It makes sense to kind of use categories that are
familiar to the outsiders.
People you're presenting yourself to. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That does make a lot of sense.
It just might not be something that they might have focused on internally.
Yeah.
But externally, it's very much like, oh, these are our myths.
It's kind of interesting in these texts that I read, because Idema is a little bit... He seems kind of critical towards this whole thing of, like, fixing stories and kind of having one official version. And Cho looks at it much more as a thing of certain themes were, like, big topics during this time period that became the official version. So they have kind of different viewpoints on it.
Do you think they fight? Do you think they know about each other?
They do, because Cho mentions Idema.
Oh, okay. Is it like with a reverence, or is it like with a little bit of a...
No, she's just like, oh, he's one of the important people who wrote about this. Just very neutral.
That already tells you something, though. I love academic beef. Yeah, I'm making it up now for these two people.
They're fighting.
I want a release statement from both of them.
how much they hate each other.
On a red note, please.
But of course, these kind of reanalyses under these kind of more fixed categories, that also affected the understanding of love in the story. So there was a scholar called Li Haiyan who sort of emphasizes that this Western notion of romantic love was also something that kind of was imported into China when it kind of became more connected with Europe. So that was also something that had an influence on these tales in their modern version, and it kind of resulted in a reinterpretation of love in these traditional tales from a modern perspective. According to Haiyan, in the older versions, a lot of the time love is seen as a kind of disruptive passion, like a sort of disruptive emotion that brings disorder, whereas in these newer versions it's often seen as like a fundamental value of society. And in the course of this, also in these newer versions, there is a stress on the idea of like self-determined marriage. So in the 20th century, the story of Liang and Zhu is often interpreted as a story about how people should be allowed to choose their marriage partners themselves.
Yes.
And that marriage should be based on romantic love and on who you choose to marry yourself. And that is a very kind of modern notion. If you come from a 20th century perspective, where that notion is really, really important, especially, you know, if we look at like Hollywood, it's a big deal, right?
Yes.
So looking at it from that perspective, the interpretation that seems obvious, it's about these people being able to choose who they marry and choose who they love, and the kind of structures, the patriarchal structures of the parents deciding who you get married to are the thing that kind of inhibit the love and the happiness. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that was always the case. Earlier on, it might have had very different meanings. One suggestion is that, for example, it used to be more of a cautionary tale.
Oh.
Of that if a woman like Zhu rejects her traditional role and kind of deceives others through the cross-dressing, that lands her in trouble.
Death.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, if she had not cross-dressed from the beginning, then she could have, then she'd fallen in love with a guy they could have just married, basically. So that it's like her deception that destroys the happy ending would also be a possible reading. Do you have thoughts?
Not really, no.
It made me think a little bit of the Romeo and Juliet comparison. It kind of made me think about that debate as well, because there's this big debate, right, about is Romeo and Juliet a love story? About how, you know, the fight between the families brings tragedy on these two kids who are in love with each other, or whether it's about them being stupid idiots.
Oh, I see. Okay. I cannot have another controversial take on your podcast. I think that 3 would be too much.
What's your controversial take?
I think that reading Romeo and Juliet in that reductive nature of saying these teens should have just kept it to themselves is very much misreading a lot of what is in the text. It's because I've only really encountered that reading from sort of social media, I think, where I've never truly seen someone have an academic view of that
that's possible
aspect and a true reading of the text. Because I think if you go into the text, there's so many passages that are, I think that Shakespeare is in a way very straightforward, but also has so much hidden in the text, which is what makes him so interesting to read. And also that a lot has to do with, sorry, this is a rant about Shakespeare. Do you want to invite me on to talk about Shakespeare some other time? My view of Shakespeare is on a certain level also that a lot of nuances within the text were added by like either the actors or something that was said in rehearsal and things that we can't really trace back, which doesn't mean that he's not the author, but it does mean that it was a these texts are much more collaborative, which this myth is also much more collaborative. So looking at it as saying there is one certain reading of it seems very reductive.
Yeah, I agree. Even if it's a text that's written by one person, there's still so many possible readings.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because, even if you have one author with one intention, that's not the only possible reading. There might just be aspects that they didn't pay that much attention to, and if somebody else looks at it, they realize, oh, this aspect is super interesting.
Absolutely, yes.
So yeah. But yeah, I agree. I don't think that with any story, especially like a folktale or something that develops so much, there's ever one meaning or one interpretation.
Quick question. This is just going back to the Romeo and Juliet
Yes.
thing. What's your reading of those two positions?
I think there's a little bit of both.
Mm.
I think it is very much about how the conflict between these two families is super destructive. But I also think that Romeo and Juliet are a little bit silly goofy as a couple.
Yes.
Because they're literally 14.
Yeah.
And I think the true icons of this story is the nurse. The nurse and Mercutio are the main characters, in my opinion.
And the prince, to me. I think that
the
he's
prince
so
is
hilarious
cool as well.
He's so hilarious because this man just shows up at the end.
He's like, oh, you fucked it. Bye. I think it really is both a comedic and a tragic story.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally Shakespeare doesn't... Sorry. We're back at Shakespeare. I really want to talk about Shakespeare.
we can do a Shakespeare episode where you just talk about Shakespeare.
Dear Lord. I would love that. Just to go back to your point, I think that's a very valid take.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you go into those teens should have just been allowed to be teenagers.
Yes.
That's, I think, a good take instead of, oh, Romeo and Juliet were just being silly.
Yeah.
And they were being unreasonable and they should have just not been
they are
together.
teenagers.
Exactly.
Right. And that's, like, there's a reason why they are so young in the story.
Absolutely. Because it's supposed to be tragic because you look at this and you think,
like, there's no reason for this.
There's no reason for this. And I think that's why this story of the butterfly lovers sort of echoed, like, Romeo and Shakespeare sort of echoes this story as well. Mm-hmm. Because there is a sense of, this is just tragic.
Yeah, it's like a story that's in itself, like, the relationship, the love relationship is actually very, it's got this kind of youthful thing and this sort of innocence.
I mean, they're students in a way, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're students who meet and they fall in love with each other. It's just like a very normal kind of young people falling in love thing. And the fact that it then turns to both of them dying is really, really sad. And yeah, it's just the result of, in this case also, I mean, in both cases, very unfortunate circumstances as well. Like, it's these structures that prohibit them being together, but also just a chain of very unfortunate events.
I'm glad we tied this back to the story because we cannot just talk about Shakespeare.
No.
I am so sorry.
Let's leave Shakespeare out of this.
Yes, let's
from now on.
Shakespeare out of this.
So yeah, there's this idea that it could also be a cautionary tale or a tale about how there is danger in strong emotion and danger in love, and that it can be disruptive to society. And personally, I think that these readings don't necessarily need to, like, contradict each other. As we talked about now with, like, Romeo and Juliet, I think they kind of supplement each other in a way. I think the story just reflects it really well, that there is this, apparently this desire for sort of like self-determined love, but at the same time we have this order that relies on it being structured and determined from the outside. And I think it just reflects this conflict really well. Interestingly, when it comes to the topic of, like, virtue and who is virtuous and who isn't, there's a version of the tale where Zhu has a really mean sister-in-law.
Oh.
Who's like trying to manipulate the virginity flower into wilting, who, like, waters it with boiling water because she's, like, trying to prove that, like, Zhu is a slut. Which is crazy. She's like, no, this cannot go well. She's going to study with all these men. Scandalous. Must make sure she gets in trouble even though she's not done anything.
She's not a girl's girl.
No, she's not. Apparently she does it because she herself is like, she is sort of unsavory, and she apparently wants to hook up with all these sexy young men. So
Okay.
she's like trying to make everyone else look bad.
Loves to get around, but like can't because she's married.
Yes.
It kind of is like when conservative, you know how a lot of conservative men, you know what I'm trying to get at?
Yes.
Yeah. You know how a lot of conservative men are like, oh, gay people are weird, and then you find out they like have orgies at the parliament or something? Like gay orgies?
I was not thinking of that, but yes, that as well.
Okay, what were you
I was thinking of how they're like, ooh, women aren't allowed to like have sex with other people, but if you're a man, you have to like have sex with all these women, and just like maths wise, it makes no sense.
It doesn't. No, it
yeah,
doesn't.
but same thing basically.
Yeah, same thing, different font.
Yeah. Yeah, but in fact, what the sister-in-law
I mean, she is.
what the sister-in-law also
What a
reflects. So basically there was an idea that women getting educated in literature, especially poetry, was very dangerous because it's a very like emotional art form. So they were worried that it would like awaken their sexuality,
Oh no.
which is scandalous.
Also, like, you know, like those sleeper agents where you have to say certain terms and then they wake up.
Exactly. So if you give them a poem, they're like, their eyes open and suddenly they're like...
Suddenly they're horny.
Yes. So obviously there was a sort of risk in the idea of Zhu going to this academy to study literature.
Yes.
I mean, we don't know if she gets horny, but she like falls in love with this guy.
Yeah.
There's certainly the idea of there being like a sexual element.
I can see how that is scandalous.
Yes. They were roommates after all. Very interestingly, I'm kind of fitting this sort of more cautionary tale vibe. Many endings of the story that were popular before the 20th century actually don't end on this romantic, ethereal image of the pair of butterflies flying away into eternity. The lovers do come back from the dead. However, to do that, they have to go through like trials and adventures.
Oh.
Yes.
Sequel.
And in many of these, so there's different versions, but what is the general trend is that Liang kind of becomes a warrior and he like fights these wild people.
Oh.
Yeah. And Idema interprets that as him having to like prove his masculinity in this like warrior role.
No homo.
No, we have to make sure nobody does anything non-masculine if they're a dude.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, Zhu very often takes on this role of the loyal wife. In many Chinese folktales, there's this, many of them center on like very righteous and respectable women, and they are often defined by the fact that they are very loyal wives. The story of Zhu very much has to do with that, and it in fact probably developed from this figure, because where the story actually in its earliest roots comes from there are several grave sites in China that are kind of in legend identified as Zhu's grave. All graves that are marked as graves of these loyal, righteous women.
Oh.
So basically the story kind of developed from this idea of Zhu as this particularly loyal wife, which is fascinating because they don't actually get married.
Yeah, they don't.
And there are many, many places all over China who claim to be like her birthplace or that claim to be the grave of the two.
That is truly fascinating. Interesting.
Unexpected origins.
Yes.
So yeah, the butterfly thing is not even kind of because we now know it very much as this butterfly story.
Mm-hmm.
But that is something that wasn't really there at the beginning. Apparently the story really grew around these sort of grave sites and developed further and further, and then these additions came in until we ended up with the butterfly story that we have today.
That is so fascinating. Humans love to look at the grave and go like, what was their life like?
Yes. We sure do.
Beatles score, sorry.
Beatles score?
Yeah,
Do they do that?
Eleanor Rigby.
Oh,
Apparently
that's
is like a...
Oh, yeah, right. It's that from that graveyard. I watched that movie, the one about where everyone suddenly forgets the Beatles exist except for that
Such
one
a good
guy.
movie.
That's so funny.
I love it. My Dream Society. Oh, I'm a Beatles fan now, I forget.
Unfortunate.
It kind of does remind me a little bit of the second part of the Eros and Psyche
Yes.
myth, where she has to go through all of these
Mm-hmm.
trials and tribulations to sort of show that she's worthy.
Yeah.
And in a way, it kind of does remind me of him going through these trials and tribulations to like... Because in a sense, all that he has done is like study and then die.
Relatable. Yeah, so now he has to prove himself as a big boy.
Yeah.
And Ju has to prove herself as a
Loyal
good
wife.
lady wife.
Good lady wife.
Good lady wife.
We love a good little shout out to... I wanted to say Interview with a Vampire, but that's not it.
That's not it.
No, it's the other vampire
It's the one
show.
that's the show that consists of lots of interviews with vampires.
It does. It technically is Interview with a...
They are doing the interviews with the vampires.
What we do in the shadows.
Yes. So, yeah, I think it's just interesting to see how this all developed and changed, and we get these different notions of how it can be interpreted. How we arrived from this image of the very faithful wife to the cautionary tale to then this modern interpretation of self-determined love. A fascinating journey.
Yeah, it truly is. I think it's also a cute little story.
Yes, it's a very cute story.
It's a great myth.
And I love the version where it's the origin story of butterflies. It's
yeah,
really cute.
I think that's my headcanon now. That's how butterflies were invented.
Yes. They arose from a grave like absolute Goths.
Thank you. That was a great explanation of it all. Great breakdown.
Oh, thank you.
Great analysis.
Thank you. I totally thought of stuff myself. No. But yeah, it's nice to kind of look just into like one little myth and look at all this stuff that's going on around it. It's very, very fun.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I thought it worked really well for the little Valentine's Day theme.
And it's also nice and dark with like death. The goth butterflies.
Yes, exactly. So it does fit the podcast as well.
I think you should name this episode Goth Butterflies.
Cute.
I know you won't, but you should.
Maybe I will.
Ooh.
We'll see what the title will. Maybe it will be Goth Butterflies.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Well, if you're listening to this, you are seeing right now.
Yeah, you already know. We don't know.
We don't. Spoiler alert.
I think that is the end.
The end.
The
That
end.
was a lovely story, and thank you so much for explaining that all to me.
Thank you for your thoughts, for the many controversial takes.
You now have a political platform to run on.
Exactly, I do. The good thing is, I feel like the listeners are on board with most of it, based on what I know about them, which is a lot.
Are you watching your listeners?
It's kind of useful if you know all of them except for like two personally. It makes
enough.
it kind of easy.
Fair enough.
But I mean, I won't be mad at any new people. Like, just flock here.
Yes, please.
Join the cult.
I thought it was a club.
That too.
I think we need to talk about your cult leader tendencies. But this is not for the pod.
My birthday is the same date as Charles Manson.
Listen.
I think we have reached the end of the brain capacity.
Oh yeah.
Possibly.
Mine was reached like an hour ago.
So yeah, I think it's time to say goodbye.
Bye. I would like the listener to imagine that I'm slowly floating away from the...
Bye.
Yes.
Like this? Okay.
I would like to imagine that I turn into a little pixie.
Mm-hmm.
And then I
Cute.
float away.
Okay. Imagine that. That's what's happening.
Thank you.
Goodbye, Anna. Bye. With that, it's time to say goodbye to you all as well. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed the butterflies. Don't try to manipulate your sister-in-law's virginity flower. That's not nice. That's weird. And also, fortunately, you live in a time where it might not be the end of your life that you want to hook up with all these sexy young men around you and you need to make other people look bad because of it. Depends on your personal environment, I guess. Anyway, I hope you don't have to do that. I also hope that you can marry your roommate if you want to. Anyway, if you're marrying your roommate, you could also recommend this podcast to them because, as you may remember, the first rule of Midnight Culture Club is to tell everyone about Midnight Culture Club, including your roommate who you're in love with. Yeah, I'll now fly away as well as a little butterfly.
Which one are you, the black or the red one?
Oh, I want to be the black one.
Okay, cool.
The Goth one.
The red.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So yeah, we will now fly away as little butterflies, and I hope to see you again soon here on the nocturnal side. Sweet dreams and good night.